Well, we've heard that God works in mysterious ways, and Perry Hohman knows that to be true, whether it's a surprise phone call or a felled tree. Hohman says we need to make sure we trust God along the way.
Author and businessman Perry Hohman believes that God communicates in several ways, and Perry wants to help you learn how to discern what the Lord is saying to you.
This big, huge holly tree that was in our backyard, and all of a sudden it fell down. No reason for it to fall down, didn't make any sense for it whatsoever. That tree is next to our next-door neighbor's house. Now, you could not see our garage from there. When that tree came down, we had a house fire. Our neighbor would have never seen it. He came running over the middle of the night, pounded on the door that we had a house fire. We all got out in just a matter of minutes.
In his new book, Trust God, Perry shares personal stories and gives practical suggestions to help your trust in God grow and your relationship with God to get even stronger.
Well, Perry is with us now, and we welcome you to the 700 Club.
Hi, Terry. Thank you.
You know, that story about the felled tree and the house fire is so typical of life, isn't it? Something happens, and very often, not always, but very often we complain and we moan and groan about something when, in fact, God was intending to use it for our good. You've had other instances in your life like that. Can you share one of them with us?
I have, sure. You know, I think a lot of times if people just look around, God is talking to us all the time. And we just, many times, we just have to keep our eyes, ears open and see how God communicates to us. And that's what the book Trust God's about. It's just learning to understand how God talks to us. And he does that through a lot of different ways. He does that through inspirations. He does that through other people. He does that through events. So I've had many instances where I just can't explain how things happen, and perhaps something negative were to occur. I've had where I was in the process of losing a job, and I was young, had a family was young, and had a lot of. We have 5 children, and I just stopped and prayed. And I got up early in the morning, and about a week later, I had a call from an old acquaintance, and told me about this job opportunity. I interviewed for it, and I've been working for the same company for 25 years.
Your book is full of that wisdom, and I'm wondering if you've always had this in your life where something happens and in our flesh we would immediately have a response or a reaction, but you seem to have learned to stop for a moment, invite God into that moment, and it changes things, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think that's the encouragement for folks today. It's to stop and spend some quiet time and to just pray and let God just talk to you through different ways. And when you do that, you're going to see his direction, and you just have to keep an open mind, because God is very creative in how he responds.
How did you learn to do that on a regular basis in your life? You said you've got 5 children, you know, you have a busy job, your life is full like everybody else's. Where do you plug in that quiet time with the Lord? Because it makes all the difference.
It really does. I like to get up in the morning, and I like to just spend some quiet time, maybe 5 minutes before I get going. I'll read some different. I'm on a number of different email
like
strings. They come and they'll give me something to think about. I'm ironing my shirt in the morning, and I'll listen to a video.
Oh, that's good, Perry.
But I enjoy it. You know, it gives me something to think about while it's quiet, and I'll look out a window and just kind of reflect a little bit. And then when I'm driving the car, sometimes I'll just turn off the radio.
So I'm sure one of the things people would ask is, how do you know it's God when you hear from him? Because of course, we talk to ourselves, our minds, you know, kick in with something not always godly.
Not always, that's right. Well, there's a lot of negative voices out there, as we know.
Yes, there are.
And
so how do you know when it's God saying, Perry, I want to speak this to you right now?
And sometimes you don't know. And I think you pray over it and you think about it. And sometimes you just, a lot of times I'll just envision, as you and I are talking here today, I may envision that I'm here talking with God. And how am I supposed to address this issue? I may have a business issue, I may have a social issue, I may have an issue with one of our children. And I just stop and think a little bit, how would you want me to respond to this? And so I just stop and reflect, and I wait for some wisdom. And Terry, sometimes you just get people that, you know, a friend or maybe some you don't know, they say something to you that makes you stop and think and rethink things through. I've had my children, when they were younger, say many things to me before, and it made me stop and think, you know, there's no way they would have known that. And it makes me stop and reflect and think that way.
You know, sometimes, Perry, also God asks us to do things that we don't feel that we don't feel equipped for, or that we've never even contemplated doing. Writing the book was kind of one of those things for you.
Yeah.
Tell us about the dream that you had that initiated all of this.
No question. At the time, I worked for L.M. Sandler & Sons, a big real estate and development company, great folks, and we were really busy. We had a lot of things going on, and the real estate market was in disarray. And we had 5 children at the time, all young, and they were all in sports activities. So my life was just fully packed. And I woke up in a dream, and it was about writing a book. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got way too much stuff going on here. I'm not a writer. I'm not a theologian. That's not my background. And I thought, you know, God, is this really what you want me to do? So I thought about it, and I prayed over it. And I just said, if this is something you really want me to do, I'm going to need to have a stronger signal.
Yeah.
So about 2 days later, the title of the book came in a dream, and I thought, all right, I better get on it. I better get going here.
But it took some time, and I think that's something important for people to know. When God assigns you to something, it's not always immediate. You know, sometimes he's asking you begin the process, and he walks you through it. It was actually 10 years.
10 years, it was. And so I didn't have a lot of time, but I'd wake up early. I got inspired to wake up in the morning, spend maybe an hour here or there, and it was always wonderful because I would wake up and I would just say a prayer, what do you want me to write about today? Yeah. And I'd sit in silence for a little bit, and then the inspirations that would come would just always be, you know, very self-satisfying to see how God communicates to you. And then I would just write. And but it took time, and you know, throughout the course of those events, you incorporate stories and things along those lines to help bring out those points.
Well, he says we'll find him when we seek him with all of our hearts, and this is a great book to help you in that process. It's called Trust God, and it's available nationwide. The author is our guest, Perry Hohman. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you,
today,
Tara. I really
Perry.
appreciate
Wonderful
that.
message.
Thank you. And I hope your viewers out there just reach out, spend a little bit of quiet time, and ask God how they can help them become His conduit for the people in their lives and make lives better.